Grant McCauley back with us. We did a little watch party action. We were like, we got to get Grant on the show soon. I've done some guest appearances with Grant. You can listen to him on 92.9 The Game, also Locked On Atlanta, YouTube, radio, the whole deal. He's everywhere talking Braves. Grant, great to see you, and this is maybe my favorite time of year. It is trade season, so happy trade season to you. And where are we at right now with Atlanta?
Yeah, happy trade season to you guys as well. I love getting the hot stove right smack dab in the middle of the year as we head into a pennant race. And I'm expecting the Braves to be active. I mean, they showed us this week. I put a poll on Twitter that lasted for about 48 hours before the Braves proceeded to make 3 different roster moves, 2 of them trades, thinking over under 2.5 trades for the deadline. But Alex Antonopoulos has shown each and every year he's going to go out, he's going to make multiple deals, he's going to find ways to make this club better. But unlike some of those other years, I mean, you've got Max Fried coming back, hopefully very soon, AJ Minter not far behind. I'm not really sure, other than adding some bullpen depth, if there's something the Braves need to do. But Alex Antonopoulos has never really just rested on, okay, well, I'll make this little deal here. That should be enough, and we'll just, head on about the second half and see what we can do. So I'm very fascinated to see what kind of deals he gets kind of off the radar, the way he did Raisel Iglesias last year, that could benefit the Braves in the bullpen and maybe somewhere else.
Hey, I got to be honest with you. If you were on the show yesterday, excuse me, I wore that same shirt.
Oh, there we go.
That would have been unbelievable, by the way. First and
it.
foremost, because we think alike. We got good flavor.
Great shirt.
It is. Sir. It's a really good shirt. Don't mess with Joe Boo's rum.
Can you read? Yeah. Can you read it there? Here, just straighten it out for the crowd here for 1 sec.
It's very bad to drink Joe Boo's rum. Very bad.
Very bad.
Hey, so for me, the Braves are unbelievable. They just do what they do. They go about their business. And you're talking about bringing in pieces. You got Taylor Hearn that just came in as well. I don't think they need anybody. I think they're the best team in baseball. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's the crazy thing about the Braves and the run they got on starting in June. I mean, that's a level of baseball that, I mean, it's not sustainable over 162, but what they did during that time, putting so much distance between themselves and the rest of the division, it feels a lot different this year, that's for sure. And having the best record in baseball is kind of the proof right there. But they lost Minter and Nick Anderson right out of the All-Star break. They're already without Jesse Chavez. And, Dylan Lee's been out for over 2 months. So their 2 best lefties and 2 very important other right-handers for this bullpen are out. So I don't know that, need is probably stretching it. And I know it's not the most exciting answer during a trade deadline to tell you I'm not sure the club needs a lot to agree with you. But I do think the depth that they're looking for, whether it's Pierce Johnson that they got from the Rockies, who does strike out a lot of guys, it's just maybe pitching out of Coors Field will help him out. And then, like you mentioned, you got Taylor Hearn, and then Yanni Chirinos could be a nice little depth piece for the Braves for whatever length of time. I mean, I think Max Fried's return is going to be a big factor as well, and maybe get Kyle Wright back at the start of September. So all of a sudden, it does feel like a lot of the pieces are already in-house, and I think that does make this a very different trade deadline.
So you go shopping at the same store that Todd shops at, but you go to the barber at the same barber that I shop at. So we got a lot in common, all right? So this is why you're on the show. I want to know, could the Braves trade from any of their strengths? Because everyone is trading, we have this, because Antonopoulos looks at things so much differently than everybody else. Is it possible they could trade from some of their strengths?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested with the where the farm system is as to what kind of deals can come together, because Atlanta went out to Oakland and went shopping each of the last 2 winters and pulled off trades that in hindsight, you look back at them, and there's no knock on some of the prospects in both of those deals, but the Braves got bona fide stars that they have plugged in behind the plate in Sean Murphy and, of course, at first base with Matt Olson, and they did not pay a bunch of top 100 prospects in order to get that done. I think it was Shea Langoliers and Christian Pache were the 2 biggest prospects they let go. But I kind of flash back to 2021 when he had to remake the whole whole outfield, and the Braves made that run to the World Series. I think he traded 1 top 30 prospect in all of those deals to get the likes of Soler and Duvall and Jock Peterson. And, with what they did, it's hard to put into words exactly. Creative, I guess, maybe is what this front office is. They identify value in a way that helps them, find deals that are kind of off the radar, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, nobody had him getting Raisel Iglesias a year ago, and they certainly did it. We were in the middle of one of those press conferences for someone else getting an extension, whether it was Spencer Strider or Michael Harris. I don't remember which one, but you're giving out long-term deals to the young guys. You're going out and getting the pieces that you need. So nothing really would surprise me other than the fact that they're not going to mess with their core, obviously. But It's not a minor league system that has been as stocked the last few years as it had been over the course of that rebuild. So I don't know if there are the big exciting pieces and prospects to get a huge blockbuster deal done, but Alex Antonopoulos has worked his magic time and time again. We'll see what he can do again at this trade deadline.
Okay, Grant. So give me a dream and a nightmare. So for dream, what is like one trade where you'd be like, yeah, I know it's piling on, but this would make Braves country go nuts? And sure, I mean, if you want to go up to Ohtani level, go for it. But like you said, that might be a tough task with what they have assets wise, and also that they're most likely not dealing him. So maybe one step down. On the nightmare side, what's something you fear for this ball club the rest of the season, which obviously can be tied to, say, pitching injuries that have popped up?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give you nightmare, and it would be more injuries. I mean, this club, despite all of that, has managed to do the things that it's done this year, but they've kind of set themselves up in the second half to look forward to some comebacks, particularly for Max Fried and for Kyle Wright. That would make this season run a lot better if those guys jump back in rotation, especially heading into October. But as far as a dream trade, I would love to be signed up. I'm on a waiting list for Shohei Ohtani, along with so many other baseball fans of their individual team, and this winter is going to be wild, but I'm just not convinced that he gets moved. So failing getting Shohei Ohtani, I was looking around some of the relievers that I think could make a lot of sense for the Braves. I like Carlos Hernandez of the Royals, and if you could get Scott Barlow perhaps as a rental in a 2-for-1, I think that's a trade that it may not make Braves fans go nuts. They may not be dancing in the streets, but it would make this bullpen a lot better, and I think that is the number one area that this team could really use right now, and as we all know, that plays big in October.
A question for you too here. That was pretty good. But Max Fried, he's on his way back. I mean, that's just another piece for guys to be worried about, whatever team they play. And he's going to be most likely fresh off what he's been doing. So, I mean, is he coming back shortly? Like, have you heard anything else about what his prognosis is?
Yeah, the plan for Max Fried is to make his fourth and presumably final rehab start for the Gwinnett Stripers tonight in Jacksonville, and then be back with the club, obviously as soon as 4 or 5 days from now, to take a turn in rotation when the Braves get back home against the Milwaukee Brewers, I would presume. That's going to make a huge difference. And yeah, I mean, it's, again, I know it's not the most exciting thing to not be shopping and looking for some of the big names that could move, and I do think it's going to be an interesting trade deadline, but Fried's return will really just kind of set the rotation right, because you've got what Strider has done this year. Bryce Elder stepped up big time. I believe that Charlie Morton is a more than serviceable middle to back end rotation starter, if that's what you want to call him these days. And then maybe get Kyle Wright back in there. But Fried, I feel like, is that first big step to getting the Braves back to that optimal health, optimal strength, the way that they would have written this thing up in spring training, if you could actually have control over when people get hurt and obviously what they're able to do when they're out there.
Are there some nerves thinking, like, we have done so well with these young guys that you bring Fried back and you talk about maybe Kyle Wright coming back in September, mid-August, whatever the time he comes back? Is there a little bit of fear that these guys might screw up what we already have going?
I don't think so. And the big reason why is that it's been such a mix and match scenario to try to get the fourth and fifth spots of the rotation locked down. I mean, we had the return of Michael Soroka, who I do anticipate seeing again at some point. He's kind of stuck in the weird purgatory of being a guy that has options, and that's changed a lot in the way that the Braves like to send up and down pitchers, and obviously they're dealing with a lot of injuries. But Bryce Elder stepping into the back end of the rotation, I feel like once you finally get Wright and you get Fried back in there, that five, along with Strider and Morton, is about as good as it can possibly get for the Braves. I mean, I'm not thinking of a better Atlanta rotation in recent years anyway than what that could be at full strength. So if there were clearer answers and guys that had really stepped up, and you're kind of in that scenario where you're wondering, well, when this guy comes back, well, what do we do with this other guy? He's been pitching so well. Elder's really the only guy that checks that box. The Braves went through Dylan Dodd, Jared Schuster, even a 20-year-old A.J. Smith-Shawver they brought up. I mean, that's a guy with a lot of promise. But none of those guys were really able to hold on to rotation spots. So I think that there's an eagerness and an anticipation to get Fried and Wright back in this rotation. But there's also been just very much everybody deals with injuries. Brian Snitker says that time and again. And I think they just have taken that next man up mentality to the next level. And they've been able to do a lot despite not having two of their best pitchers all year.
Grant, I know you're dialed into this team as much as anyone out there. So Jackson, one of our fans, just asked, is Grissom, Von Grissom, the trade chip? So want to just get an update on how he's been doing. Obviously, it hasn't worked out the way that most of us thought. But I will preface this by saying we didn't think he was going to be called up last year. It was an early aggressive call up. He's still super young, figuring out where he's going to play. But where is he at this year? And also, could someone like that be used, or are they looking to deal, younger prospects that are not as close to being an impact in the bigs?
I think that Grissom, with what he did last year, in particular, the success that he had at second base, I mean, there are questions about whether or not he'll be a big league shortstop long term. His belief is that he can be, but how are clubs going to look at him, and where might there be an everyday job for a team that is out there looking for a player that can hit the way that Von Grissom can? There's not much question about that. He's had a really good year at the plate in AAA. He's hitting well over 300, on basing really well, and he's playing some shortstop, playing some second base. And I do think that that's the kind of player that when you put a package together, especially at 21, 22 years old, a lot of teams would love to have somebody that they could, put at the keystone position, or they could try him out at shortstop and give him a little bit of run. But I think even though he came up this year and didn't necessarily light the world on fire in his second go round at the big leagues, that's probably one of the Braves' main trade chips. And looking at AJ Smith-Shawver as another one, I don't anticipate him being the kind of arm that they want to move because of the age and the upside. But, if you're able to make the trade that puts a team that's this good over the top, I think, pretty much everybody's in play right now if you're the Atlanta Braves. I mean, short of, maybe trading away the guys you just drafted, 2 weeks ago. So we'll see what they decide to do. But I do think Von Grissom's a big trade chip for this team, yes.
All right, so I'm just going to switch gears just a little bit. Here's a little trivia. When was the last time the Braves turned an 8-3-5 triple play?
I'm going to go 1884, and I'm going to guess they were called the Boston Bean Eaters back then.
You probably know better than me, but that was unbelievable play last night.
Yeah.
But, hey, it is, and they ended up still losing the game, but still.
Of course.
Listen, I say it over and over, and I tell everybody this. Everybody's like, oh, man, you play for the Mets. Why aren't you? I'm rooting for the Mets. But at the same time, the Braves are just that good. There's nothing that can stop this team besides injuries, like you said. So, for me, I don't see them losing in the National League right now, and I just don't think they need any pieces.
Yeah, and I don't disagree as far as, having to go out and make that major splashy move, that's for sure. But, as we saw a year ago, and talking to some of the guys before they went out on the road, I mean, ask Michael Harris. I mean, last year you had just a crazy second half that, sent you guys into October, and maybe, when you expend that much energy to win the division and then have a layoff, it might have had a negative effect. I don't know. But other than that, I really can't think of anything that might be, possibly standing in the Braves' way other than the injuries. I mean, that's the big thing. And every club, has that danger each and every day. But, this is a team that is extremely good. I think it's the deepest lineup in baseball. That's why I really don't feel like they have to go out and make any potential upgrades. They pretty much have everything in the lineup 1 through 9 about where they want to. And speaking of Michael Harris, if that's your number 9 hitter, I mean, this is a ridiculous lineup. And it's been impressive to watch, and clearly what Ronald Acuna Jr. has been doing. Matt Olson pushing maybe a 50-homer season. Sean Murphy's exploded, having a breakout season at the plate. I mean, these are all guys that I think are going to be ending up getting some MVP votes in terms of Acuna and Olson and Murphy, and maybe even Austin Riley, who just went on a heater as well. This is just a really powerful lineup, and I think that – I know we talk about pitching winning in October, but this lineup, it can certainly make a big difference on any given night.
Grant, what do you think of the rest of the division? Todd started to mention it. The disappointment of the Mets, the re-rise right now to some extent of the Phillies. They've had their ups and downs, but to me still, and I've watched a lot of Phils lately, they look like a playoff team that people wouldn't want to mess with, much like last year. What do you think? Obviously, we know where the Nats are at. They're selling, and the Marlins are weird too. So what do you think? You watch this division quite frequently.
Yeah, well, let me go ahead and tell you, I wouldn't overlook the Phillies. And as they showed, and as the Braves did in 21, I mean, you get hot at the right time. You can make a run through that 3 weeks of October. And that, I think, it adds to the drama, obviously, of the postseason because of some of the unpredictability of it. But, yeah, I do think the Phillies are still a club to keep your eye on. The Mets is just such a surprise and such a conundrum because you just kind of figured with what they were bringing back and even the changes that they made, DeGrom for Verlander and so forth, that they were going to be a team that was right there and was capable of winning 95, if not more games, and that just hasn't happened. The Marlins have been kind of the fun surprise. I know they kind of fell flat around the All-Star break and coming out and had that 8-game losing streak, but they can be sneaky buyers, I feel like, at the trade deadline, especially if they feel like they can get into one of these wild card spots. And really, I think their big battle right now, at least, is with the Philadelphia Phillies as far as getting in. So I wouldn't overlook the Marlins or the Phillies, but I think the Phillies, given what they did last year, it just hits a little bit different, no pun intended.
I'm with you, dude. What's your favorite bobble behind you?
Oh, goodness. My favorite bobblehead, I haven't even gotten out of the box yet. I've got the Ron Gant press box bobblehead. This is my new fave. It's right over here on the side. They just gave this away last week, and maybe it's recency bias, but this 30th anniversary of the Fred McGriff trade in '93, and of course, Freddie going into the Hall of Fame over the course of the weekend. I'm just a sucker for the throwback particular day themed bobbleheads, and that press box fire. That's just one of the cool moments in Braves history where it happened like literally and figuratively that Braves club caught on fire that '93 season. So I think right now that's my favorite in the clubhouse.
I like it.
Nice.
Legit.
Yeah, for sure.
Todd Father's a big collector, so and he had it ready,
nice.
like right next to him, ready.
Ready to go.
That's sharp. Hey, Grant, great catching up, dude. Enjoy this trade deadline season.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. And thanks for having me, guys.